Let's see if this is actually working. Okay, cool. So it seems to be transcribing. Okay. It was transcribing, so hopefully the microphone's working. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go over starting the second assignment. So the first thing you need to do for your second assignment is go into course content, go into this week, whatever it is, and you'll see down there that there's a data file. So just click on it and download it. And then it's a bit bigger. Probably shouldn't have downloaded it again. I've got hundreds of versions of the blessed thing. But anyway, so I've downloaded it again. Right click, go show in folder. Oh, I actually haven't. Well, I did, but I deleted it. Okay, let's get rid of that one. So what you need to do then, just leave it there and then go into ArcGIS Pro. And what you need to do in ArcGIS Pro is start a new project. So if I just go down, I'm starting ArcGIS Pro in the background. Let's just drag it up. Let's just get that one out. Okay. So what I've done here is I'm just going to drag ArcGIS Pro to my other screen. Dear, that's weird. Just a bit pain. Now, why has it gone and done that? Okay, so basically start a new project. So I suggest just click on map, call it something like assignment 2, because I already have one, and navigate to some place where you know where it is. Now, I keep telling all of you, you'll see I've actually already got an assignment 2, but it doesn't matter. Let's just delete that one. I'm going to save it as assignment 2. Okay, very well. The name assignment 2A. Hang on, sorry, I'm sort of going backwards. Create a new project. Browse, find somewhere to put it. Chuck it into teaching. Should be okay. Okay, cool. So I've created a new project. Now, I keep saying this to everyone, and I know I repeat this like 5 times a week, but it is really, really, really important to keep your stuff in the same place. Don't save it all over the place. So like, I mean, you're all as guilty as each other, so I'm not picking on anyone. So if I go here, for example, I have projects, and I've got various projects under different things, and these are all saved in the same place. They're in my C drive, so if I save this, they're in my C drive in a specific place. I've seen things some on Google Drive, some on whatever. Please keep them all on the same place. If you're working on a Griffith computer, keep them all on the same USB drive. USB drives are cheap. I recommend, to be honest, that if you're working off USB, that you work off a SSD drive, a portable SSD drive, which you can get from like Kogan for really cheap or somewhere like that. I don't know. It just works faster and it works better. So you can see, I mean, there's some quite expensive ones, but if you look at, I don't know, you don't really, I've got one from here, one from Umart, $59. Anyway, I bought one from, I don't know what I paid for the one from Kogan, $50 or something. But anyway, it's really useful because SSD drives work a lot quicker. Okay, so what I've done is I've downloaded the data. I just go right click, show in folder. And what I'm going to do is double click on it, click on that once and extract it to where I created the new project. I'll just find it because I know where everything is. It's under teaching and extract it to there. Okay, so basically I've taken my data out of it and I've extracted it to a specific folder where I saved my new project. I'm just going to delete that. I don't want it again. I probably should have kept it. Anyway, so I've extracted it. Now, if I go back into ArcGIS Pro and I go into my folder location, you will see there is the new folder. And if I do the drop-down list here, and it's got a geodatabase. Now, what I want you to do is do the click down on databases, and you will see it's created one which is like default. So there's nothing in it. Right click on database, go add database, navigate to where you downloaded it, go OK. Right click on this one and go make default. Right click on this one and go delete. So this is deleting the geodatabase that it just created. And if you do the drop-down list there, you will see that it's got 2 feature layer data sets. And if you do the drop-down list on this, as you see, it's got the geodatabase and another folder called rasters. So what we're first going to do, we'll save our project. We'll do the drop-down list for main layers and the drop-down list for optional layers. Now, there's a lot of stuff in there. You don't necessarily have to use any of them. Core koala habitat might be useful. So this is what we need first. See the one called Saraba? And just double click on it to give it some sort of outline. So this is our study area. I also recommend with your base map that you do something like topography, which I think I've already got it on. But if you don't have it on topography, just put on topographic or terrain with labels. This is a very hilly area, so it's quite good to show the hills. So what we're first going to do is I'm going to show you how to do something called georeferencing. So can you see this thing called Saraba? We're going to go into Analysis, Tools. And what we're going to do is we're going to go layer, or it's either layer or polygon, I can never remember, layer to KML. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to get raw data off a raster site. If I go back into the PowerPoint, okay, so if I go into the PowerPoint, we're going to find some raster data. We've created the new project and we've dragged Saraba to the map. Okay, you won't have EO browser images. Mine's got EO browser image because I've got more than one image, and I'll actually show you how to download more if you want, because they're cool. So we need to create a KML. So what we're going to do, our layer, we've only got one layer on the map. Oh, we're just going to, well, it doesn't really care. I don't care what it's called. Just accept the default. So we have a default and we have created a KML. And don't know where I put it. Let's just have a look. Always remember where you put things. Okay, cool. So we've created this KML. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into a website. I've given it in the slides. But this is one of the ones that I do. And this is something called Sentinel Hub. There's actually 3 different types of Sentinel access. Sentinel is the European Union satellites. Sorry, I'm just drinking water. And as you can see there, there's got lots and lots of different satellites that you can download. So we're just going to use Sentinel-2 because that's default. So there's 2 different things that you can do with it. You can create your own account there, which is free. So I'm actually going to log in because I've created my own account. You just click on login and you sign up. And I've got a free account with them. You don't pay for it or anything. And it automatically opens to Roam. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this thing here on the top right-hand corner. And you can see there, you can draw on the map as well, or even with a pen. It's easier if you do this one. You can see it's asking for a KML. So we're going to navigate to wherever we saved the KML, which is probably in here. Did I do that one today? Yeah, I deleted all the ones from yesterday. We just find the KML. It's actually KMZ, doesn't make any difference. And you can see it immediately finds the project site. So it puts it exactly on the map. Now, what we need to do is we want to find a theme. And we're going to find some satellite data. So sometimes I just sort of, before even put in a date, I don't know, randomly put January to May and just go search. And it'll come up, if I zoom out, with a whole lot of different satellite imagery tiles. And some of them overlap. So you can see this one here, this one here. So try find one that's actually on all of it. Trying to click on that specific one, but if we just click on this, you'll see it shows 13 results. And the way there's other ways of doing this, these ones I find are better, the ones that are sort of at the angle. So just click on any of them. It's very cloudy, it's not going to show anything. And that will add a satellite image. Now, we don't particularly want this date, and we also want to filter it by cloud cover. So what I do is I click on this little calendar up here, and I put in the date I want. Now, I've given you some data from 2017, 2019, and 2021, but let's just find some day in whenever with no cloud cover, or as little cloud cover as possible. So we put it with like 3% or something. So all I'm doing is dragging this thing over, and you will notice that it doesn't look too bad. Let's just click on the 5th, see if there wasn't any cloud on the 5th. I don't think I dragged it in time. You see, it actually comes up as a highlighted thing. Let's just go into March. I think there were some days in March with no cloud cover. Doesn't look like this. 16th. There's a tiny little highlight thing. Even like the cloud cover. Let's chuck it in a bit smaller. See if I can find days with no clouds. It's unlikely this year. Maybe I'll have to go into the previous year. Doesn't really matter so much, but what's happened is that it has now come up with a whole lot of data, which is a bit slow because we're looking at stuff from, you know, it's an online cloud portal stuff from. Now, what we have here, it's got a whole lot, I'm just waiting for it to load in the meantime. It's got a whole lot of what they call spectral indices. And spectral indices are different calculations using the different types of electromagnetic spectrum layers. And from that, it's then gonna allows you to actually create an I'm just actually opening up this week's online quiz in case you want to do it. There we go. Week 5 or week 6, don't know. There. I'm just going to actually open up the online quiz for you. Actually, I might just drag this down. Test availability, blah, 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 blah. And let's make it available now. It should be available now. Okay. Don't know why it says. Well, let's change this. There way you can do the quiz now. Change. Submit. There we go. You should be able to do the quiz. Let's see if it's open. There we go. If you want to do quiz 6, there we go. You can do it. Oh, someone's logged in. Okay, so this is taking for ages in where am I? Go back into Teams. It's taking ages. Let's find another date because it's taking too long to load. Maybe we can't find anywhere in March. It's got no cloud. Let's have a look in February. There we go. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you this sort of stuff. Okay, so we find a date in February, and these are the different spectral indices. So the true color is what you see and what I've given you. False color is something that's used, and some of the stuff's really good if you're looking at, say, urban areas. False, you can do moisture index and all that sort of stuff. And this is quite useful. So if that's the moisture index, for example. So if I went back into, let's just go into when there was a drought, 2019, maybe not February, and you can see the moisture index changes quite a bit. So these spectral indices are used in a lot of different stuff. Scene classification map is not that good, that. So let's just find one in 2022. Where was I? Chuck back onto the same date. See, all I'm just doing is changing the date. And what I'm going to do is, if you want to download this data, let's just chuck it back onto. And all of these explain the different indices. If you want to download the stuff, and I'm just going to download an ungeoreferenced image. And how download, what you do is you click on this. You don't need an account to download just like this. So if I click download, basic, JPEG, so I'm going to download an image. If you want to download all the different spectral indices, you need an account, and you can go, for example, I normally use TIFF 16-bit, I make it high, and this is very useful. You can see this is the coordinate system that the satellites use, and you can actually download all of these or even the raw data. I'm not going to do that. But if you want to sort of do further analysis, you can actually do that yourself. So now I have actually downloaded a JPEG. What I'm going to do is show it in the folder. Right click, show in folder, and I'm going to drag it over to this project. Let's do Control X and Control V. I'm just going to put it anywhere, doesn't really matter. Actually, chuck it in rasters, that's probably a good place. And just plonk him in there. And I'll turn it down. So what I need to do now is I'll turn off Sentinel Hub. But if you sort of Google as well, there's also really interesting ones. So for example, there's Sentinel Playground, which is pretty much the same thing, but it's a bit easier to use. And there's also one, if you really want to get into it, there's actually the Sentinel, this Copernicus Hub, where you can download extremely detailed and comprehensive images, for example. Raw data and all that sort of stuff, so you can do that one as well. And it was great fun. But anyway, what we're going to do is go back into GIS. Now, the important thing first to do is right click on Sarabar and go zoom to layer. So you need the layer on, you need to be zoomed in. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add, right click on our, go into folders, go into rasters, and see if you can find which is the, and I'm just going to drag the JPEG to the map. It'll ask if you want to calculate statistics, always say yes. And what you will see there, and you'll also see unknown coordinate system. You'll also see that the layer doesn't show. So if I right click on it and I go zoom to layer, and I sort of zoom out, it's like plonked it anywhere because it's like unknown coordinate system. I can go back into my map. Make sure you zoomed into Sarabar. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on Analysis, click on Tools, and we go Project Raster. Your input raster is your JPEG. Your input coordinate system is, because I actually know what coordinate system they're in, is your WGS 1984 Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere. Now, you can go and Google and find Copernicus and find that that's the coordinate system, but it won't allow you to put an unknown. So I'm just going to click that, which is correct. Leave the output raster data set's name as is, just because it freaked out when I did it once before. So, and your output coordinate system, let's just, what's the current map? Make a GDA 2020 and then run it. And it's going to add a new raster. It's created a new raster. So what I'm going to do is right click on that one, remove it. Now you will see that the raster is still not showing on my map. And if I right clicked and I zoomed it, it'll be in the same place. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the name of the image. Make sure you remove the correct one, not the one that you just, not the original one. And on imagery, you'll see there's an imagery tab. And you will see there's a thing called georeference. If you click on it, of course, it opens an entirely new pane. Tab. The first thing you need to do is click Set SRS, which won't do anything, but you need to make sure that you have your raster selected. And then the next thing you need to do is click on this one, which says Fit to Display. And you will see, if I just zoom out a bit, it's more or less fitted to display okay, but it's still out a bit. So what you need to do now is you need to actually make this exactly correct. So with georeferencing, now this is an easy georeferencing. Sometimes you've got to do it more complicated. But what you need to do for this is you need to start on the corners. So if I zoom right in, I could try auto georeference and see if it works, but nothing happened. So what we need to do is just make sure that this bit up here, which is auto apply, is on, and we need to add control points. Oh, it's thinking about it. Sometimes it can be a bit temperamental. So that auto georeferencing is doing in the background. Let's go back to the PowerPoint while it's thinking about it. So in the PowerPoint, so we've created a car, and you can add, I've added local government areas. You can add all sorts of stuff from the portal. I use that sort of stuff as well. And this is how to do some of the stuff with raster data where we went into previously. And that's like download things, for example. So this is just basically going back to what we've done. There's one with no cloud cover, some random date. So what we're doing is we're going to do this now. We've projected the raster and it's thinking about things. So what we're going to do, it didn't work to auto GRF. So what we do is we click add control points. And then you will see it's opened a little crosshair. So what the important thing with georeferencing is you start from the image and then you drag it to the vector, which will come up as a little purple thing. And you will see it actually has moved it. But if I zoom out a bit, it's easier sometimes just doing it with the mouse rather than going back into the map. It's still not exactly thick. So let's go. You can start go on that corner, go from the image, click on that and drag it to vertex. And if you go back in, sorry, I shouldn't probably do this, probably making. And is it exact? I mean, you don't have it exactly. It's still a bit out. So click on the point, drag it there. And if I look at it now, sometimes when you've got a thing that you've got to georeference, you've got to sort of like find where a road junction is or something. It's not quite perfect, so let's just do all the corners. And there, that's good enough. So what it's done is it's actually fitted it to the Saraba. I'm going to right click and go zoom to Saraba just to make it easier. And now what you have to do is you've got to save it. And you have to close georeferencing. And then you will see that is exactly in the right position. And you can see this is not a very good image. This is just some random JPEG I downloaded. But if we save our map then, okay. So that's how to georeference. Sometimes if you get a downloaded photograph or something, you can then like, you can look at it and you can try and find where this road is, and then you can sort of click on it, and it can be quite thin. Interesting with georeferencing, it has a table. So if you stuff it up, you can just delete the last point you did. So I'm actually going to get rid of this because we're not going to use it. I was just showing how to use it. And I'll save it again, and you will see, I'm going to remove that georeferencing and delete it. And what you will see, I'm just going to quickly go over, first of all, the optional layers I gave you. I'm going to delete, oh, I'm not going to do it. The main layers are something called Saraba and something called fire scars. So this is a digitized thing for fire scars. And then in the optional layers, you may use whichever of these you like. I'm going to drag all of them on except one, which is a duplicate. Sorry. Those VHC, BPA, and VHC bushfire prone layers are actually the same thing. Drag all of these over. And they're all Southeast Queensland. I'm just going to untick them. I'm just going to show you what's in these layers and what they are. I do recommend that you actually use some of these. So the first thing we're going to do is the Vegetation Management Act Southeast Queensland. If you look at the attribute table, because remember, that's always the first thing you should do when you see some data. It's got lots of complicated data in it. Feel free to clip it to your study area or just leave it as Southeast Queensland. It's quite a big data set. Now, the important thing is to look at this thing. And that all means various things, but the table on that is something called VM poly. So if I right click, I go symbology, because that's another way of finding what's in data. And if I click on unique values and I pop it into VM poly, obviously I know this data set, it will then open in all sorts of different things. That stands for endangered, dominant, endangered, subdominant, least concerned, and all that sort of stuff. So it's the Vegetation Management Act. If you don't know what any of this is, you will need to do some of it for your, go into Queensland Spatial Catalogue and just chuck in what's actually there, but chuck in something called VL, you can write in VM Poly or VMA. Oh, sorry, this is quite temperamental when it comes to, so there's various different VMA. I'll give you a hint. That's actually the Regional Ecosystem Services, and you will see the biodiversity. It's actually the biodiversity status of remnant ecosystems. And if you look at the metadata, there's all sorts of information on this. And if you look at Queensland Globe, you can look at that sort of stuff too. So what you basically do, so this is VM Poly, and you can see it's different vegetation types. You can pretty much get rid of all these ones. So these are the ones you want. And it's a good thing. So if I could, for hypothetically speaking, go into my symbology and get rid of all of the rest of them. Remove. And you will see there, if I look at my study area, I'm not actually doing anything to the data, and you can hide all of these things. So if I go into my data, you can see, look at the study area. Let me just drag the study area to the top. And you can see that within the study area, if I dragged it to the top, obviously didn't do it very well. Within the study area, you have certain types of things that are triggered under the Vegetation Management Act. Okay, so that's quite a useful data set. Remove it. Another thing you have here, it's called VHC. It's actually a vegetation hazard class. And if I look at the attribute symbol, there's various types of things, some of which don't make much sense. But one of the things that is quite useful to do, because it's smaller, is the BVG 5-meter description. The BVG 5-meter description is the broad vegetation group. Description, oops, no, I want the description, so it's got things that make sense. And you can see there, if you look at it, that there's various different things that, like, it actually tells you what vegetation types are there. Obviously, this is just default. So if you wanted to sort of, you can actually use this also as a proxy to how much vegetation. It's also important to look at the date of it too. So that's the vegetation hazard class. It's quite useful. The next one is, I think this is pretty much the same. Let's have a look at the attribute table. Some of them are duplicate, but I gave you lots of data. Attribute table, looks like the same data. Okay, that's the same. There we go, we'll remove that. This is quite a useful one that you might look. It's the core koala habitat. And if I right click on the core koala habitat and go into the attribute table, it's the same like regional ecosystem stuff, but there's an important field further along. There's habitat value and there's core habitat. So you could choose to symbolize it by, I know we can do habitat value first, which will give you general habitat known, general habitat possible, or you could symbolize it more simply by core habitat. Which actually only gives you core habitat, so I recommend doing it by general habitat value. So that's quite a useful data set too. BVG, is that the same? Let's have a look at the attribute table. Some of them are duplicates. Who knows? You don't have to use that one. Remove it. So you don't have to use all of them. It's just, and BPA, which is a useful one. This is the bushfire prone area. So if you right click on it and you go attribute table, you can see that there's the class there, which is the bushfire prone area. So you might choose to do that by class. Let's add all values, make it reds because it's bushfire. Let's make it reds and oranges. Find a gradient that's red and orange. Green, oh, green. Let's see if I can find a red to orange. Well, there we go. Red to pink will do. Yeah. Okay, so high potential, and then you can just edit individual ones. You can make that, oh, I don't necessarily want it that sort of, make it that orange. Let's go back into the symbols. We'll make the very high, that is very high. I want that darker red. You can make that a lurid, bright, dark red, where you sort of like there. So you could edit obviously each one individually. Potential impact, well, we don't really want impact as, make it something like, oh no, not so bad. You can also change the high, we'll make a type of red, chuck him on a red, slightly less. And what we can also do is for medium, we can make a sort of, I don't know, who knows, pinky red or something, or orange maybe. So I've just symbolized it. You can also sort of like, let's just drag the symbology out over it all. And I might just right click and remove these. And like I'm just selecting all of them. I'm going format symbols, which just means I'm formatting all of them. I don't want any outline on them, or maybe just 0.1. Work. You can type in things in that and outline color. I don't know, we'll make it light. Or make it a bit darker and go apply, which means that'll get rid of all the weird outlines, hopefully. So that would be quite a useful one to do. You could also drag the fire scars over and see, do the fire scars correspond? Let's double click and change the, just change the outline of it. Do the fire scars correspond to the fires and where fires were, etc. So this would be quite useful. So these are optional layers, but you can do, so I recommend you use the BPA, the VMA, the koala habitat. You might use one of the others as well. It just gives you some really good, any of those VHCs are pretty much the same, so you can use any one of those. Also, what I recommend, you can also, if you really get into the environmental stuff, you can go into the map, you can add data, do it this way, or go into Living Atlas. And you can go into, try ArcGIS Online, and you could do, I don't know, not much wetlands around there, but try something like forest types. And, or agriculture or something, protected areas and forests of Queensland. Terrestrial protected. So there's lots and lots of different things that you can add. So it's up to you. Vulnerable ecosystems, or I know, let's just pop in threatened species. I mean, obviously I've given you koala, or you can go into Queensland Spatial Catalogue and download more data. Threatened species might put Queensland as a better proxy. I was going to find threatened species all over the world. Doesn't look like there's very much there. Oh wait, SEQ, what's this? I've no idea what it is. Double click on that, see what it is, what's in there. SEQ something. Marine turtles, that wouldn't be much. SNES bushfire, ooh, that'd be interesting. Forest, so there's tons and tons of different stuff. There's not much. Ooh, cool. I don't know actually if this is the specific area, so let's just go, I don't know, habitat impact. And sometimes these things take a while, but you can add all that sort of stuff to your map as well. And we need to produce 3 maps, by the way, and I'm going to put up an exemplar soon. Habitat now, is this anywhere near here? Let's just zoom to lay and see where it is. Oh, well, that's all very well, but it's not much point because it's like somewhere on Fraser Island by the looks of things. Is that Fraser Island? No, it's Stratty. So sometimes, you know, these things are quite different. So sometimes what you can actually do is go into your, oh, no, not that one, hang on a sec. Go into your Griffith Maps. It's going to log me out because I just changed my password. It's going to make me put in another password. Oh, maybe not. Who knows? We'll have a look. Okay, cool. So, oh, I don't know whether it's going to change my password. Not only change my Griffith password, I didn't change my GIS password, but who knows? Okay, cool. So if I look into there and I go into content and word thing. Okay, I can search for content, and it's always a pain to actually find things. Click on Living Atlas. Search, and you can also you can subcategorize it. That's assuming they've actually categorized it. So we've put Australia as a filter, and we can pop in things like, I don't know, habitat value, whatever. Put put in threatened species. Sometimes it defaults to things just from Griffith. Oh, this clear threatened species, and there's a whole lot of threatened species. Oh, put Queensland in there. Sometimes the filters are. So there actually is a lot of stuff in this, but it's sometimes quite hard to find things. It's a bit of a pain, to be honest. But anyway, let's go location. We could do it that way. Anyway, it's a bit of a pain using these different things, but so you can add more data, go into Queensland Globe and look for stuff, and then download it off Queensland Spatial Catalogue. Sometimes I find it easier to go into Queensland Globe first, and oh, it's experiencing interruptions. What a check. What a different. And if you wait for Queensland Globe and you just look for a layer. So this is sometimes an easier way of doing things because it can be a bit temperamental. Add a layer. It's taking a bit of time, so maybe I should just wait for it to load first. It's experiencing interruptions, obviously. Or you can go into Queensland Spatial Catalogue. And you can look for a thing. Threatened species. And habitat suitability. Oh, that's a nice new thing. Oh, cool. Quite like this. Maybe I'm going to download this myself. So if I want the data set, I just pop in my email address. I accept. And if you don't quite know what it is that you want, you can always click on the metadata. Has Queensland Globe decided to work? Oh, let's add layer. And so I'm looking for threatened species here. Let's find biodiversity planning assessments. Blah, 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 blah. It's around here somewhere. WildNet is the one I'm looking for. You can click on WildNet and it can put in all the WildNet things. It's very slow. You can also find this through various other places. So if I click out to Saraba, with Queensland Globe, you can also actually even add your KML. So I can add my KML as a place. I think we were logged in. Anyway, so I can add my own layers. Where you're going to add my data. So I can navigate to my KML. And I can add Queensland Globe as well. And that's opened it up in Queensland Globe. And I have added WildNet, theoretically. Yo, what does ticking it mean? It's very slow. So I've actually added WildNet so you can actually see what threatened species are found. You can download the data from Queensland Spatial Catalogue, which I just have done. And you can do that there. Matters of state. Oh, there's all sorts of interesting stuff there. So feel free to add extra data. The more data you get, the better. Okay, there's WildNet. Let's see if there's any other one. I mean, there's plenty of threatened species there. But it takes a bit of a while to actually pop it on. It hasn't actually put it on yet. Because it's playing up, it's being temperamental. Let's zoom in a bit. So sometimes with Queensland Globe, you can't actually see anything till you zoom in or out because it's scale dependent. So it doesn't show you every single thing. I know there's certain species there, but it's taking a while to click on this. Oh, I don't want bacteria. Okay, whatever. I should want diversity by grid. And I basically just would want animals and plants pretty much. So you can untick various things. Oh, what have I got? Protozoans. And you can just plonk it on, and when it decides to load, it will actually show things which it hasn't put on, and we'll just leave it in the background. Okay. Seeing what this person is open. Okay, cool. So let me just go here. I just need to do a screenshot here for someone who's asking me a question, one of your students. And I'm just going to tell them what the quiz is. I've just opened the online quiz, so let's just click on that. Okay, cool. So Queensland Globe takes a bit of time, but you can actually download the whole data set, even though it's being temperamental. And sometimes with Queensland Globe, it's quite useful because it can give you the name of the data set, so you can actually find it properly in Queensland Spatial Catalogue. And you can do the drop-down thing. for various things. So the name of it's quite useful because you can actually, it's not showing on the map yet because Queensland's globe's been temperamental. Or you can just go in here, WildNet. And you can filter it. Oh, there we go. You can download WildNet as well. So it helps to know what the thing's called. Actually, I'm going to download WildNet. I haven't had it for ages. And you can download something. You can extract it from their map, from their geodatabase, and add it to your map. I'm always downloading stuff from here. This is where I get most of my data from. Okay, it's easier than trying to find it in ArcGIS Pro. Okay, so pretty much that's all you really need to do for that. Let's get rid of that. We'll go back to Sarabar, zoom to layer. Get rid of the BPA. And you can just extract any of the layers to your optional layers. Also, I recommend deleting some of those because they're duplicates. Lastly but not least, pulling in my feet, you can also, then, what you need to do for your work is we're going to work on 3 images. We're only going to do the classification next week. But if you go into the folder I gave, you'll see that there's 3 rasters. Sorry, I'm just trying to talk to someone. Okay, cool. So you will see 3 rasters. 2017, just drag them all onto your map. Now, you don't have to georeference any of these, but it'll give you a thing. Do you want to build pyramids and all that sort of stuff? Always go yes. And these will display beautifully on your map. So there's 2021. They're more or less the same date every year. So if you look at 2017, this is sort of your baseline. 2019 is your fires. You can see it looks very different. And 2021 is what did 2-year gaps from September to September. So you can see they all georeference, they'll display beautifully. And then from next week, we're going to do something called classification, which is very easy. So basically what we do is, say, for example, I go into 2021, I click on the highlight. I'm not going to do it now. You go into classification tools. You first do something called this, and then you do something called this, which is really simple. And then we convert it to vector and we do a simple calculation. It's simple stuff because you've done most of the preliminary work already, but of course you've got the report. Now, when you write the report, it's very important that you, obviously this is a proper report, so it's not just like a presentation. It's a report that, you know, it's a proper report. So we need some referencing and all that sort of stuff. And you can find out about any of the data sets by going to Queensland Spatial Catalogue. You can look at the metadata. You can see, if you look at the metadata, for example, if you use WildNet, and you can actually go into the DES either this way. There's the website, the search thing. You can look at it online. You can go. And all the information on this sort of stuff is desqld.gov. So it's got all the information, and there's further information which you can get by going into the individual Queensland government, because all these websites are from the Queensland government. WildNet database. So there, for example, you can just click on WildNet database, and it tells you all about it. So there's the useful wildlife resources, and you can see it on all of these different places. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know some of those existed. And there we go there. So it'll give you information, and then you just reference that page if you want to use it, and shows you Wildness database gives you this blah, blah, blah. You can find species list, biomaps, and all that sort of stuff. And it gives you good information about that data set. So if you wanted to find, for example, remnant ecosystems, I think it's DES, who knows which agency. So there, remnant regional ecosystems, don't know which government agency it is. And it tells you all about them. Now, you don't have to go into vast amounts of difference. So if I go into Queensland Globe, let's just see. Let's just see here. Also, if you go into Queensland Globe, for example, and I've got, let's just put the VMA on. Oh, this thing's not loading. They did say it was causing issue. Where's remnant ecosystems? It's lurking there somewhere. It's under this thing somewhere. Remnant ecosystem mapping. regional ecosystem, and if I try find biodiversity status remnant at what we want, oh, this one's showing, not really. And you can see that, you can see here, if I look at this, this is E-DOM, E-sub-DOM, and that's the same thing as in that data set I gave you. And if you go onto the thing, you can click on any one of those. I find that the actual thing doesn't work. I'll go onto this way. You can click on that and click on that because there's a million different things, and it gives you all sorts of useful information, including at the bottom, and you can look up on a link and it will give you straight away to the page I was on before, or other stuff. So all of the stuff on Queensland Globe are regional ecosystems. I mean, it's quite detailed, this, but some of it would be useful to just put some of the basic stuff. There's very complicated stuff on this. But just a general description, for example, like what's its extent, a short description, a description, not the whole description, some of it's very long, and it's a habitat for threatened plant species. So this is really useful stuff. If I go back onto Queensland Globe and I put one of the other ones on, so just look for, if Queensland Globe's been temperamental, as we can probably figure, but we'll go all the way back, layers, 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 search. I'll chuck it onto layers and try and find bushfire, which sometimes shows and sometimes doesn't. Okay, so there's pretty useless. It actually is on Queensland Globe somewhere. But yeah, good luck. Anyway, so you can find there. And bushfire hazard area, actually. Bushfire Queensland. And it's actually based on CSIRO. I'll pop this into the, there's various things. Public college. And this is a really useful thing. And I'm actually going to put it, you can download it. Let's pop it up into the, pop it up here. And this is the methodology that they used for the bushfire hazard mapping, one of the layers of which I've given you. Where are we? Are we on Teams? Blah, 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 blah. We're on Teams. Okay, let's chuck it into the chat. Chat. The PDF and all this sort of stuff is very useful. There we go. And is someone on Teams talking to me? No one else is logged in, so I can talk to anyone. Just gonna edit, copy link. Okay. I'm not even on this team. So, okay, cool. So theoretically, there's no one else logged in, and this is pretty much all we need to do this week for the GIS. I'm going to turn GIS off. I'm going to take all those images off because I've got to run a in-person workshop shortly. Remove. And I am going to save this and turn it off. Okay, cool. Annie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording just quickly because no one else is logged in, and I'm going to stop recording so that